When I picked up the phone to ask my son Max about his wedding date, my daughter-in-law Lena looked me straight in the eye and said, with a cold little smile, "Oh, we already got married yesterday. We only invited special people." Those words hit me like ice water. Special people. I, who had paid their $500 rent every month for 3 years, furnished their entire home, filled their refrigerator when they had nothing. I was not a special person. I stood there in the living room of my own house, holding the phone like it weighed 1,000 pounds, watching my son avoid my eyes while Lena relaxed on the sofa I had bought them. The pale pink dress I had carefully chosen for her wedding hung uselessly in my closet, along with the new shoes and the foolish hope of being part of the most important day of my only son's life. I had spent $200 on that dress, imagining myself smiling in Max's wedding photos I would never be in. For weeks, I had planned everything. I had saved $1,000 to give them as a gift. I had called my sister Diana in Chicago to share the good news. I had deep cleaned my house, thinking they might stop by after the ceremony to celebrate. All of it shattered in an instant with those 4 poisoned words. Only special people. Max finally looked up and said in a flat, rehearsed voice, "Mom, it was just an intimate thing, very small. Just us and the witnesses." But I knew he was lying. I had already seen the photos online, Lena's parents smiling proudly beside them, her siblings raising glasses of champagne. I saw Lena's white dress, the same dress I helped pay for with the $800 I gave her last month. I saw everything I wasn't meant to see. A week later, 7 days after that humiliation, Lena called again, but this time her voice was different. Gone was the smug confidence. Now she sounded desperate, almost frightened. "Renata, the rent is overdue. The landlord says if we don't pay this week, he'll evict us. You forgot to make the transfer." I stayed quiet, remembering every rush to the bank, every plan I canceled so they could have a roof over their heads, every meal of plain beans and rice so I could afford their comforts. And now, after excluding me from their wedding, she had the nerve to call me as if nothing had happened. "Lena," I said, with a calmness that even surprised me. "Didn't I tell you? I only help special people." The silence that followed was so heavy I could hear my own heartbeat. For the first time in years, she was the one trembling. "Renata. I don't understand," she whispered. "We were always special to you. You're like a second mother to me." Lies. All of it. Wrapped in that sweet little voice she only used when she wanted something. The same voice she used when she asked for money for the dress, the rings, the honeymoon, things I paid for without knowing I'd never witness the moment they exchanged those vows. For years, I had tiptoed around them, measuring every word, every gesture, hoping for just a scrap of affection from my own son. I was the perfect mother, the quiet provider, the woman who never complained even when they treated me like I was invisible. But those words, "only special people," woke something in me that had been asleep far too long. I added up everything I had spent on them in 3 years. Between rent, food, gifts, emergencies, and whims, over $20,000. $20,000 taken from my retirement, from the savings my late husband left so I could live my final years with peace, not stress. And for what? To be treated like a stranger at my own son's wedding. That night, after I hung up the phone, I sat on my bed and cried. But they were not tears of sadness, they were tears of anger, years of swallowed humiliation finally breaking loose. I cried for all the times they made me feel like my love was a burden, my presence an inconvenience, and my money the only part of me that mattered. I cried for the foolish mother who kept giving and giving, trying to matter to people who never truly cared. And when I woke up the next morning, something in me had changed. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was something colder, sharper. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, same tired eyes, same wrinkles from a lifetime of loving without receiving. But there was a new hardness in my stare. A determination I hadn't seen in years. I made my morning coffee, just as I had for 4 decades. But this time I didn't reach for my phone to ask Max how he slept. I didn't wait for a message, or an apology that would never come. I simply stopped. For the first time in a very long time, I was my own first concern of the day. I sat at the same kitchen table where I had planned surprises for them, counted bills for their expenses, and quietly cried when they brushed me off. But today, this table was witnessing something different. I pulled out my checkbook, my bank statements, and started doing the math. I wanted to see, down to the dollar, the price of my own blindness. Monthly rent of $500 for 36 months, $18,000. Food and supplies, around $200 a month, $7,200. Birthday gifts, Christmas gifts, anniversaries, at least $3,000. Lena's medical emergencies, $800. Their unpaid car loan, $2,500. The air conditioner repair in their apartment, $600. Their living room furniture, $1,200. $33,400. That was the total cost of my generosity. $33,400 drained from my husband's inheritance, my pension, and the savings I'd built through decades of hard, honest work. All of it wasted to keep two grown adults comfortable, adults who couldn't even pretend to respect me. The phone rang. Max. Normally, my heart would have jumped. I would have rushed to answer, praying he'd finally apologize, tell me this was all a misunderstanding. But not today. I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. Then it stopped, and I quietly kept sipping my coffee. 10 minutes later, it rang again. Lena this time. I let that one ring too. Then a text from Max. Mom, please answer. We need to talk. I deleted it without hesitation. At 2 o'clock, I decided to go for a walk. I hadn't gone anywhere in months without a purpose, without their purpose. My errands were always the same. The bank for transfers. The supermarket to buy something they needed. The pharmacy for Lena's medications. Today, I walked simply because I wanted to. I passed the old park where I used to take Max when he was little. I remembered the sweet little boy who hugged me tight and told me I was the best mom in the world. Where had that child gone? When did he turn into a man who treated me like an ATM with feelings? When did I start believing I had to buy my own son's love? At the bank, the place where I had drained myself dry, I stopped at the door. The branch manager, Mr. Klein, saw me through the glass and waved. He had processed every transfer I'd sent Max and Lena. He had watched my account bleed month after month. I went straight to his office. Mr. Klein, I need to cancel the automatic transfers, I told him. He looked genuinely shocked. For 3 years, those transfers had been as predictable as sunrise. Are you sure, Mrs. Richter? Did something happen? His concern felt more sincere than anything my son had said to me in months. What happened, I replied, is that I finally opened my eyes. Cancel everything. And I want to protect my accounts. No one else should have access to my money. While he processed the cancellations, my phone rang nonstop. Max. Then Lena. Then Max again. As if they could sense their income slipping away. I turned my phone off. Mrs. Richter, Mr. Klein said gently as he handed me the paperwork, I apologize if I'm overstepping, but in all these years, I've seen you be incredibly generous with your family. I just hope you're not being forced into this. His kindness nearly broke me. This man, who barely knew me beyond bank statements, showed more genuine care than my own son. I'm not being pressured, Mr. Klein, I said softly. For once, I've stopped pressuring myself. When I left the bank, I felt strangely light, as if I had left a 1,000-pound weight behind. For the first time in years, my money was truly mine. No more obligations to people who saw me as a resource, not a person. Walking home, I thought about everything I had sacrificed for Max and Lena. The trips I never took to save money for them. The friends I drifted away from because I was always on call for their emergencies. The hobbies I abandoned because every dollar spent on myself was $1 less for their needs. When I reached my house, 3 cars were parked out front, Max's, Lena's, and a third one I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped. Through the windows, I saw movement inside. They had keys I had given them because I trusted them. Because I believed, foolishly, that one day they would care for me the way I cared for them. I took a deep breath. It was time for the first real confrontation of my new life. When I opened the door, I saw a scene I will never forget. Max sat on my sofa with his head in his hands. Lena paced like a trapped animal. And an older man I didn't know was rifling through papers on my dining table, my papers. My personal documents. What is happening here? I asked, louder than I expected. All 3 turned to look at me as if I were the intruder. Lena spoke first, her voice desperate. Renata, thank God you're here. We need to talk. This is Mr. Fisher, from the law firm we consulted about your situation. My situation? The words tasted like metal. What situation? I asked calmly. I'm doing perfectly fine. Max finally looked up. The eyes that once belonged to a sweet child now held nothing but financial panic. Mom, the bank told us you canceled the transfers. And that you blocked our access to your accounts. We don't understand why you'd do that. Mr. Fisher, a man in a gray suit with a smile I didn't trust, stepped forward with an outstretched hand. Mrs. Richter, I'm Dr. Fisher, a family law attorney. Your children are concerned about your mental well-being and have asked me to assess the situation. I didn't shake his hand. Instead, I walked straight to the table and snatched my documents away from him. These are my private papers, I said coldly. You have no right to look at them. Mom, Max said, using that condescending tone he had perfected, we're worried about you. You cut us off financially with no explanation. You're not answering our calls. We think you might need professional help. Lena stepped forward, attempting to take my hand with false tenderness. Renata, sweetheart, we know you're under stress. Maybe the loneliness is affecting you more than you realize. At your age, episodes of confusion are normal. Confusion. The word rang in my ears like an alarm. Now I understood. They weren't here to talk. They were here to declare me incompetent and take control of my finances. The same woman who told me they only invited special people to their wedding was now treating me like a senile old fool. I am not confused, I said, my voice sharp and steady. I am clearer than I have been in years. And you are all going to leave my house. Right. Now. Mr. Fisher tried to interrupt with his patronizing lawyer tone. Mrs. Richter, your children have a right to intervene if they believe your ability to manage your finances is impaired. Impaired? A bitter laugh escaped me. Is it impaired to decide that my money belongs to me? Impaired to stop funding the lives of 2 adults who treat me like garbage? Lena leapt up as if I'd struck her. We never treated you badly. Your family. Everything you have will belong to us one day anyway. We're just speeding up the process. There it was, the naked, unfiltered truth. In their eyes, I was already dead. My savings, my home, my belongings, all of it was simply inheritance waiting to be collected early. Whether I had 70 years left or 70 days didn't matter. To them, I wasn't a mother. I was an ATM with legs, and a malfunctioning one at that. Out, I said, pointing to the door. All 3 of you, out of my house. Max shot up with that same petulant expression he used to wear as a boy when he didn't get his way. Mom, we can't just leave. We have obligations. The rent, the car payments, the credit card you co-signed. You can't just cut us off overnight. I can't. My voice rose for the first time. Who says I can't? For years, I paid rent for a home that wasn't mine. I filled a fridge in a house where I wasn't welcome. I financed a life that didn't include me. Mr. Fisher calmly pulled out a folder from his briefcase and placed it on my table. Mrs. Richter, we've prepared documents that will make this transition smoother. A power of attorney so Max and Lena can manage your finances until you're feeling better. I picked up the folder and, without even opening it, tossed it straight into the trash. The only transition happening here, I said, is your transition out the front door. Lena began to cry, not tears of sadness, but of frustration, of entitlement. You can't do this to us, Renata. We were counting on you. We made plans based on your support. We bought things, took on obligations, because we knew we could rely on you. Obligations based on my money, I replied. Not my happiness. Not my company. Just my wallet. And now that I've decided my money should be used for my life, suddenly I'm a confused old woman who needs guardianship? Max tried to move closer, but I stepped back. He wasn't the little boy who once crawled into my bed during storms. He was a 35-year-old man furious that his comfortable, mother-funded life was disappearing. Mom, we made mistakes, he said, trying to sound remorseful. The wedding was a misunderstanding. Lena was nervous. I was pressured. We can fix this if you just become reasonable again. Reasonable? The word burned in my mouth. Reasonable means letting you drain me dry. Reasonable means pretending it didn't shatter me to be excluded from the most important day of my only child's life. Mr. Fisher calmly packed his papers, clearly used to having proposals rejected. Mrs. Richter, this is not over. Your family has legal options. If you are making irrational decisions due to mental decline, a judge can assign guardianship. The threat hit like a slap. This wasn't a family visit. This was a coordinated legal ambush to declare me incompetent. Mr. Fisher, I said, looking him directly in the eyes, you should research very carefully before threatening a 71-year-old woman who managed her finances flawlessly for 4 decades, raised her son alone after her husband's death, ran a home, worked until retirement, and funded 2 perfectly capable adults until last week. Lena stopped crying, her mask slipping. Her eyes turned hard, cold. This won't stay like this, Renata. We have rights, and lawyers too. Wonderful, I said. Hire all the lawyers you want. With your money. Because mine will no longer pay for your tantrums. They headed toward the door with the wounded pride of people unused to hearing the word no. At the threshold, Max turned back. Mom, this is going to end very badly for you. You're going to end up alone, with no one to care for you when you really need it. Max, I said softly, with painful clarity, I'm already alone. The difference is that now it's by choice, not by your neglect. When the door closed behind them, silence filled my house, deep, peaceful, beautiful silence. The silence of freedom. That night, I couldn't sleep, but not from sorrow. From adrenaline. From finally reclaiming my life. I lay awake planning my next steps like a general preparing for battle. If Max and Lena wanted a fight, they would get one, but it would be fought with intelligence, not tears. By 6 a.m., I was dressed and ready. My first stop, the office of Attorney Weber, the man who handled my late husband's will. Unlike the shark Max brought into my home, Mr. Weber had an impeccable reputation and specialized in elder protection. Mrs. Richter, he said after hearing everything, what your children attempted is sadly common. It's called elder financial abuse, and it's a federal crime. Entering your home without permission and rifling through your private documents is also a violation. His words calmed me and frightened me at once. Calmed me, because I finally knew I wasn't imagining things. Frightened me, because the situation was even more serious than I thought. We need to document everything, Mr. Weber continued. Every transfer, every gift, every instance where they pressured you. We'll also update your will so they can't manipulate you again. We spent 3 hours going through every record. Mr. Weber shook his head when he saw the total, $33,400 over 3 years. Mrs. Richter, that money could have supported your retirement. Your travels. Your joy. Instead, it sustained 2 adults who didn't invite you to their own wedding. When I left his office, I had a plan. First, change every lock on my house. Second, install a security system with cameras. Third, open a new bank account at an entirely different bank. And fourth, start living the life I had put on hold for far too long. My next stop was the hardware store. The owner, Mr. Summers, had seen me countless times buying things to fix Max and Lena's apartment. But this time was different. "Mrs. Richter, what brings you in today? Another emergency with your son?" Mr. Summer asked with the gentle familiarity of someone who had watched my generosity go to waste for years. "No, Mr. Summer," I said quietly. "This time it's for my house. I need every lock replaced. And I want the best ones you have." He looked surprised, but didn't ask a single question. While I compared locks, his son Ethan, who installed security systems, walked over. It felt like fate stepping in. "Ethan," I told him, "I also need a full surveillance system. Cameras, alarms, everything. Price isn't a concern." They started preparing the paperwork for next day installation when my phone rang. An unknown number. It was Lena, calling from someone else's phone, because I had blocked hers after yesterday's argument. "Renata, it's me. Please don't hang up. Let's talk like civilized adults." "Go ahead," I said coldly. "Listen. I know you're upset about the wedding. It was a mistake. Max and I talked, and we want to make it up to you. How about a special dinner? At your place. Just us. We can cook like we used to." The manipulation was so transparent I almost laughed. "Lena," I asked, "how much rent do you owe?" The silence on the line told me I'd aimed at the right place. "Well, 2 months. About $1,000. But that's not why I'm calling, Renata. We miss you." "Do you miss me, or my money?" I asked plainly. "Both," she said, without even pretending otherwise. "Yes, we need your help, but we love you, too. You're important to us." "If I'm so important," I replied, "why wasn't I important enough to be invited to your wedding? Why don't I ever get a phone call that isn't about money? When was the last time you asked how I was doing?" She said nothing. We both knew the answer, never. "Lena, listen carefully. For 3 years, you've treated me like an ATM with emotions. You've used me, ignored me, humiliated me, and finally, excluded me from the biggest day of your life. Now that the money has stopped, suddenly you remember you love me. Renata, please." "There is no please. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine." I hung up and turned off my phone. Today was about reclaiming my life. That afternoon, I walked into the beauty salon I hadn't visited in over a year. Every time I tried to come, something urgent came up for Max or Lena, or the money I saved for myself suddenly became their emergency. "Mrs. Richter." Cynthia, my favorite stylist, called out. "What a surprise. I thought you forgot about us." "I didn't forget you, Cynthia," I said softly. "I just forgot that I deserve to be taken care of, too. I treated myself to everything: cut, color, manicure, pedicure. For the first time in years, I spent money on me without guilt." Cynthia talked about her children, her dreams, her plans. It felt light. Refreshing. Human. "You look beautiful," she said when she finished. "But more than that, you look free." "Did something happen?" "Yes, Cynthia. I finally learned how to say no." When I pulled into my driveway later, I noticed a car I didn't recognize. For a moment, my heart clenched, thinking Max and Lena had come back with backup, but then I saw an older woman sitting on my porch steps. "Mrs. Richter," she asked as I got out. "That's me. Can I help you?" "I'm Eleanor Brooks. I live next door. We've been neighbors for years, but haven't had the chance to talk. Yesterday, I heard shouting from your house, and I just wanted to make sure you were all right." Her genuine concern hit deeper than I expected. A complete stranger cared more for my well-being than my own son did. "Please come in, Mrs. Brooks," I said warmly. "I'll make us some coffee, and tell you a story you won't believe." While I made coffee, I told Eleanor everything. She listened quietly, nodding now and then, and when I finished, her eyes were full of tears. "Mrs. Richter," she said softly, "you did the right thing. I went through the same thing with my daughter 5 years ago. I thought it was my job to finance her adult life. I believed she wouldn't love me unless I kept giving." "What happened?" I asked. "I cut off the money when I realized she only called when she needed something. It was awful at first, threats, guilt trips, emotional blackmail. But 6 months later, she called to apologize. And we rebuilt a relationship based on love, not money." Her words gave me both hope and confirmation. "Do you think Max and Lena will understand one day?" "Maybe," she said honestly, "maybe not. But that's no longer your responsibility. Your responsibility now is to live your own life." That night, for the first time in 3 years, I went to bed without worrying about their rent, their food, or their latest whim. I went to bed thinking about my future, and I slept better than I had in years. The next morning at 8 o'clock, Ethan and Mr. Summer arrived to install the new locks and security system. While they worked, my phone rang nonstop from unknown numbers. Lena was still trying to reach me from different phones, but I had discovered a new skill: ignoring calls that didn't serve me. "Mrs. Richter," Ethan said as he mounted a camera, "this system will give you real peace of mind. You'll see who comes to your door, even if you're not home. And if someone enters without permission, the police are notified immediately." The irony wasn't lost on me. I was installing security to protect myself from my own son. But somehow, it didn't hurt anymore. It just felt necessary. While they worked, I decided to do something I hadn't done in years: call my sister Diana in Chicago. We had drifted apart because every conversation had become a list of Max and Lena's accomplishments, and how much I had paid for them, financial reports disguised as family updates. "Renata?" Diana answered, surprised. "Sister, how are you? It's been months." "I'm good," I said. "Better than good." I finally came to my senses. I told her everything: the secret wedding, the humiliation, the lawyer, my decision to stop funding their lives. She listened silently, then said something that stunned me. "Renata, it was about time. Every time we talked, it hurt to hear you brag about how much you gave them, like love was measured in dollars. I wanted to tell you something, but I didn't know how." "What?" "That Max never spoke lovingly about you. When I saw him at family events, it was always, 'My mom paid for this,' or 'My mom bought me that.' Never, 'I miss my mom' or 'I love her.' You were a service provider to him. Not a person." Her words hurt, but in the way a doctor hurts you when cleaning an infected wound. Necessary pain. "And one more thing," she continued. "Lena always talked about you in the future tense. When Renata's gone, we'll remodel her house, or after we inherit, we'll invest." It was like they were waiting for you to die so they could truly begin their lives. That revelation hit me like ice water. I hadn't just been an ATM, they saw me as a temporary obstacle between them and unearned wealth. When I hung up, I sat quietly in my kitchen, absorbing it all. A loving marriage, 35 years of raising my son alone, and 3 years of financing 2 adults who saw me as a $100,000 inconvenience. The doorbell rang. On the new cameras, I saw Eleanor standing with a mug in her hands. I opened the door and she handed me fresh coffee. "I thought you might need company after everything you shared yesterday," she said with that warm, sincere smile I now appreciated deeply. We sat in the living room as she continued her story. "My daughter told me the same things Lena tells you. You're like a second mother, we're special to you, everything will be ours someday." They're rehearsed lines, Mrs. Richter. Straight from the emotional manipulation playbook. "You think such a book exists?" I joked weakly. "Not officially," she laughed, "but they all follow the same script. Chapter 1, Make her feel indispensable. Chapter 2, Create constant financial emergencies. Chapter 3, If she resists, question her mental health." We laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. It was heartbreaking, and strangely comforting, to recognize the same patterns in both our children. "Did you feel guilty when you cut off the money?" I asked. "Every day, for the first 3 months," she admitted. "But then I started seeing the results. My daughter took on a second job. Her husband stopped spending his weekends on the golf course and started searching for extra work. They finally learned how to live within their means. And more importantly, they learned that I am a person, not a wallet." That afternoon, I did something I'd been avoiding for years. I went to visit my husband's grave. I had always found excuses: Max needed something, or Lena had another urgent crisis, or I convinced myself the taxi fare was better spent on their emergencies. The cemetery was quiet, almost peaceful. Robert's grave looked a little neglected, and guilt washed over me. I sat down in the grass beside him and spoke to him as if he were still here. "Robert, my love. I think somewhere along the way, I lost myself. When you passed, I poured everything into Max. I tried so hard to be the perfect mother, thinking it would make up for you being gone. But in doing that, I forgot who I was." A soft breeze brushed against me, and for a moment, I felt as if he truly heard me. "Our son. I don't recognize him anymore. Or maybe he was always this way, and I refused to see it. And the money you left for me, the money meant to give me a peaceful life, I spent it all taking care of him. But no more, my love. I finally understand." I cleaned his grave, replaced the wilted flowers, and stayed there for a long time, simply breathing in the quiet. For the first time in years, I wasn't rushing home to handle someone else's emergency. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw 3 cars parked in front of my home again. My heart pounded, but this time I refused to be afraid. The cameras showed Max, Lena, and 2 strangers pacing restlessly, pointing at my house. I didn't get out of the car. Instead, I called my lawyer. "Mr. Weber, they're here again, and they brought more people." "Stay in the car, Mrs. Richter. I'm calling the police now. The temporary restraining order is active, they are not allowed on your property." Minutes later, Mr. Weber arrived with 2 police cars. I watched from inside the vehicle as officers spoke to Max and Lena. I saw my son shouting angrily. I saw Lena crying, but her tears meant nothing to me anymore. An officer came to my window. "Ma'am, it's safe. They need to leave immediately." When I stepped out, Max yelled from the street, "Mom, this is insane. We're your family. You can't call the police on your own son." I spoke with a calm I didn't know I had. Family doesn't threaten to declare their mother mentally unfit. Family doesn't break into homes. And real family doesn't treat their mother like an ATM. Lena shrieked from across the street, "You owe us. You co-signed our bills. You can't just abandon us." Mr. Weber cut in firmly. "Mrs. Brooks, all future communication must go through my office. And before you threaten debt collection, I suggest you get your own attorney. My client has full documentation of every voluntary payment she made for the last 3 years." I watched them drive off, angry, defeated, but not finished. I knew this wasn't the end. But for the first time, I felt strong. I had help. I had clarity. That night, Eleanor invited me to dinner. I met her daughter, saw genuine warmth between them, respect, kindness, laughter. Not once did her daughter ask for money. "I wanted that with Max," I whispered. "Maybe one day," Eleanor replied gently. "But first, he has to learn you are a human being who deserves respect, not a source of income." For the first time in weeks, I slept with hope. The next days were quiet, almost too quiet. The camera showed Max and Lena circling my house several times a day. Sometimes they parked. Sometimes they waited. As if studying my routines, searching for their next moment. Mr. Weber told me to document everything, so I kept a detailed log. "Every visit after the restraining order helps us," he had said. On Friday morning, I was finishing breakfast when the doorbell rang. The camera showed a well-dressed young woman holding a folder, smiling politely, but not warmly. Good morning, Mrs. Renati Richter, she said as I opened the door. I'm a social investigator from the Office of Senior Services. We received a report that you may be at risk, and I need to conduct a wellness check. My blood ran cold. Max and Lena had taken things to a new level. It wasn't just empty threats anymore, now they had involved the government. May I see your ID? I asked, trying to steady my voice. Of course. She held out an official-looking badge. It appeared legitimate. I'm social worker Mrs. Schmidt. May I come in and speak with you? I let her inside. I knew refusing would only make things worse. She sat on my couch, opened a folder, and began reading from a form. Mrs. Richter, we've received reports that you've shown sudden changes in your financial habits, cut off communication with your family, and installed excessive security systems due to possible paranoia. We were also told you've refused medical and legal help offered by loved ones. Every word was crafted to make me sound like a confused, unstable old woman. I could practically hear Lena's voice behind the phrases. She always had a talent for twisting reality. Mrs. Schmidt, I said, gathering every ounce of dignity I had, I'd like to speak to my lawyer before answering anything. Ma'am, this isn't an interrogation. It's a wellness check. If you have nothing to hide, there should be no problem speaking with me. If you have nothing to hide. The same sentence abusers always use to justify violating someone's privacy. I'm calling my lawyer, I said firmly. You may wait or return later, but I'm not answering questions alone. Mr. Weber arrived within 20 minutes. The moment he saw her badge, his face hardened. Mrs. Schmidt, he said, I hope you have a court order. My client is under legal representation. Any investigation without due process could be considered harassment. We received reports from concerned family members, she replied, her confidence slipping. We're required to investigate. What family? He asked sharply. The same family that tried to force her to sign a power of attorney? The same family that broke into her home to search her documents? The same family that lived off her money while shutting her out of their lives? He placed a folder on the table. Here is documented proof of financial and emotional abuse. Over $33,400 taken from her accounts in 3 years. Emotional manipulation. Repeated exploitation. If anyone should be investigated, it's not my client. Mrs. Schmidt flipped through the documents, unease growing in her eyes. It was clear the story she had been fed didn't match reality. Mrs. Richter, she said quietly, can you explain why you suddenly stopped helping your son financially? Because I finally realized they were using me, I said. Because I understood they didn't see me as a mother, just a bank account. And I'm done living that way. But don't you feel a responsibility to help your family? She asked. I felt anger rise. My responsibility was to raise my son to adulthood. To give him the tools to stand on his own 2 feet. He is 35 years old, married, and perfectly capable of supporting himself. Helping him now is a choice, and I choose not to anymore. Mr. Weber added, would you consider it normal for a 35-year-old man to rely on his 71-year-old mother to pay his rent? Mrs. Schmidt didn't answer. She was rethinking everything. Mrs. Richter, she continued, do you manage your own finances? I do. I can show you my bank statements, investments, and tax records. All current. All organized. Do you live independently? You can see for yourself, the house is clean, I take care of myself, I drive, I socialize with neighbors. Any medications? Only vitamins and the occasional aspirin. Mr. Weber added, she recently underwent full medical evaluations as part of this legal case. She is in excellent mental and physical health. Mrs. Schmidt closed her folder. Mrs. Richter, based on what I've seen today, there is no indication that you are at risk. I will be closing this case. After she left, Mr. Weber and I sat in silence for a moment. Renati, he finally said, this is going to escalate. Max and Lena are spending money they don't have trying to have you declared incompetent. Does that mean they're desperate? Exactly. Their next step could be filing for legal incompetence. It's expensive and hard to win. But if they find a sympathetic judge and a willing psychiatrist, they might push for a court-appointed guardian. The thought chilled me. They could take control of my entire life, and all of my money. They can try, Mr. Weber said, but we have solid proof that you are perfectly competent, and that their motives are rooted in greed, not concern. That afternoon, I called my sister Diana to vent. Do you see how far they're willing to go for money? She said after I told her everything. They're risking family ties, wasting money on lawyers and doctors, destroying their own reputation, all to get their hands back on your bank account. Her words struck me hard. Max and Lena had shown me exactly who they were. There was no going back, no hope for honest reconciliation. I had never truly been a mother or a respected mother-in-law to them, just walking money. That realization hurt, but it also set me free. I no longer needed to question myself or feel guilty for protecting my own life. That evening, Eleanor came by with a surprise. She brought her garden club friends to meet me. Renata, these are my friends, Cynthia, Maria, Carmen, and Alfreda, she said. We've all gone through something similar with family. We spent the night sharing stories. Maria had a brother who treated her like a bank. Carmen had cut ties with a daughter who only came around when she needed cash. And Alfreda had rewritten her will after discovering her grandchildren thought she was their retirement plan. What hurts me the most, I confessed, isn't losing the money. It's realizing the love I thought I had, never existed. Alfreda, wise at 80, placed her hand on mine. Real love can't be bought, dear. If you had to pay for it, it was never real. Her words were medicine to my bruised soul. She was right. I had purchased attention, not affection. I had invested in an illusion. You know what I've learned? I said quietly. Being surrounded by people who don't love you is lonelier than being alone. At least now, when I'm alone, I'm in good company. We all laughed softly and raised our glasses to hard-earned wisdom. That night, after they left, I sat outside in my garden. The stars seemed brighter, or maybe my eyes were finally clear. For the first time in my adult life, I was financially free. No obligations. No one draining me. And instead of frightening me, that freedom felt beautiful. I could travel. I could remodel my home. Buy myself nice things. Donate to causes I cared about. Plan my future instead of financing theirs. Freedom tasted like hope. A month after the psychiatrist's visit, I thought I'd finally won. I had fallen into a peaceful routine, breakfasts with the newspaper, gardening, lunches with Eleanor, painting in the afternoons. Rediscovering my old passion made me feel alive again. But one Thursday morning, while painting flowers on my easel, Mr. Weber knocked on my door with a look that made my heart drop. Renata, we need to talk, he said quietly. Max and Lena have filed a formal incompetency lawsuit. They're asking the court to assign you a legal guardian. The words hit me like stones. I knew it was possible, but hearing it aloud made it terrifying. Does that mean they could take control of my money? I whispered. If a judge rules that you can't manage your affairs, yes. Max could be named your guardian, with full control of your finances. I sank onto the sofa, stunned by the deepest betrayal of my life. My own son was trying to strip me of my independence, just to steal from me. Mr. Weber, what evidence could they possibly have? You know I'm competent. He sighed. They've submitted statements from 3 witnesses claiming you behaved erratically. They also included medical bills they claim you never paid and medications they say you hoarded. That's all a lie, I said. I don't owe anything, and I don't hoard medication. I know, Renata. But they fabricated documents. And they twisted your refusal to take an unnecessary psychiatric exam into evidence of mental decline. Their manipulation was almost evil. They had turned my self-protection into their proof. Who are the witnesses? I asked. Mr. Weber checked his notes. Lena, of course. A neighbor named Mr. Davis. And someone claiming to be your pharmacist, a Mr. Green. Mr. Davis, the rude man across the street who had always held a grudge because my visitors sometimes parked near his house. And now, he was helping them destroy me. Mr. Green had always been my pharmacist, so I couldn't understand why he'd say anything against me. I need to speak to him, I told Mr. Weber. Something isn't right. That afternoon, we went to the pharmacy together. Mr. Green greeted me looking startled and uneasy. Mrs. Richter, it's good to see you. How are you, Mr. Green? I was told you signed a statement claiming I behave erratically with my medications. His face flushed red. Mrs. Richter, your daughter-in-law came in a few weeks ago. She said she was worried because you were acting strangely. And what did you tell her? I said you only buy vitamins and the occasional aspirin. You have no regular prescriptions. But she insisted that proved you weren't caring for your health. Mr. Weber stepped in. Mr. Green, did you sign a paper? She gave me a document saying I was confirming irregular medication purchases. I thought it was for insurance. I didn't know it was for a lawsuit. My own pharmacist had been tricked. Lena's manipulation had no limits. Mr. Green, I said gently, I need you to write a statement explaining exactly what happened, and that I have no issues with medications. Of course, Mrs. Richter. I'm so sorry. After that, we went to confront Mr. Davis. He opened the door already irritated. What do you want? Mr. Weber said, I understand you signed a statement about my client. Yes, I did. That woman is crazy. She's been acting strange for weeks. What behavior, exactly? Installing cameras like she's in a war zone, strangers coming in and out, yelling at her family in the street. He had twisted everything. The cameras were for protection. The strangers were my new friends. The yelling was me defending myself from Max and Lena's intrusions. Mr. Davis, I said, do you know why I installed those cameras? No, and I don't care. To protect myself from my son and daughter-in-law who broke into my home and threatened me. That's exactly what a crazy person would say, he snapped. There was no reasoning with him. That evening, Mr. Weber and I planned our defense. Renata, we need a psychiatric evaluation, he said. Dr. Moore is an expert and can confirm your capacity. What if Max and Lena bribed the judge? What if none of this matters? Renata, the system isn't perfect, but it isn't rotten. We have real evidence, your competence, and their motives. We're going to fight. The next day, I met Dr. Moore, a woman in her 50s with sharp, compassionate eyes. For 2 hours, she tested my memory, reasoning, finances, and emotional health. Mrs. Richter, she said finally, your results are well above average for your age. You're not only competent, your cognitive function is excellent. Doctor, why is my family doing this? Based on everything, this is a classic case of elder financial exploitation. Sadly, it's common. I left relieved but heartbroken. I had proof I was mentally sound, but that also meant the lawsuit was necessary, and real. That afternoon, Eleanor gathered the garden club ladies. When I told them, they were furious. Renata, we'll testify, Maria said. Better than testify, Cynthia added. You're clearer than most women half your age. Alfreda, with her 80-year-old wisdom, held my hands. My dear, greedy children have been declaring their parents insane for generations. But you have something many never had, proof, legal support, and friends. Her words gave me strength. I wasn't alone. I had an army of women who had watched me grow stronger. You know the saddest part? I said quietly. Max and Lena are willing to destroy any chance of reconciliation for money. There's no going back now. And maybe that's good, Cynthia said. Now you know exactly who they are. That night, I cried for the first time, not out of sadness, but mourning. I said goodbye to the son I thought I had, to the dream of a loving family, to the belief that unconditional love was returned. And in that grief, something still strong rose inside me, the determination to protect not just my money, but my dignity and freedom. 3 weeks later, the trial arrived. I woke early, put on my best black suit, and looked at myself in the mirror with a strength I had never known. Today wasn't just about proving my capacity, it was about my worth as a human being. Mr. Weber arrived at 7 a.m. to review our strategy. Renata, remember, they must prove incompetence. We simply have to show the truth. And what if the judge is biased? I thought, my heart tightening. But Judge Miller had a reputation for fairness. I had researched his past cases, he did not automatically side with families. He was known for protecting the rights of the elderly. We arrived at the courthouse at 9 a.m. In the hallway, I saw Max in a sharp new suit, probably bought for the occasion, and Lena dressed in black as if attending a funeral. Perhaps it was the funeral of our family relationship. Max avoided my gaze, but Lena's eyes met mine with a cold, businesslike calculation. For her, this was not about love, it was about a transaction. Their lawyer, older and elegant, carried the confidence of someone who had won cases like this before. His opening statement was clear: portray me as a confused old woman, misled by strangers to turn against her loving family. Your Honor, he began solemnly, Mrs. Renata Richter has shown a decline in recent months. She has cut off financial support for her family without explanation, installed unnecessary security systems out of paranoia, and isolated herself from loved ones under the influence of neighbors and lawyers exploiting her vulnerability. Every word was designed to make my self-empowerment sound like dementia and my freedom like manipulation. Then came the witnesses. Lena testified first, her performance Oscar-worthy. She wept as she described my alleged decline, my hostility, my paranoia, my isolation. Renata has always been like a second mother to me, she said, trembling. Seeing her decline has been devastating. We just want to help her. Lies wrapped in tears. But when Mr. Weber cross-examined her, cracks appeared. Mrs. Schuster, when was the last time you called my client without asking for money? Lena faltered. Well, we talked about many things. Specific date? I don't remember. And your wedding, was she invited? It was a small ceremony. And when she asked, you told her only special people were invited? Lena's face reddened. She couldn't answer convincingly. Max was next. Seeing him on the stand, swearing to tell the truth while lying about my mental state, cut me deeply. This was the boy I had raised alone, the one I had given my life to. My mom has always been generous, he testified. But lately she has been erratic and irrational. We believe she is being manipulated. Mr. Weber's questions pierced the illusion. How much money did you receive from your mother in the last 3 years? I don't know exactly. $33,400, does that sound right? Maybe, she's always been generous. And how many times did you visit without asking for money? Silence. Deafening. And you broke into her house without permission, checked her private documents, and brought a lawyer to pressure her into signing a power of attorney? Max's face fell, he could offer no dignified answer. Mr. Davis, their neighbor, admitted he had never spoken to me directly, everything he observed was superficial. Dr. Lehman's claim about my refusal for evaluation was countered completely by Dr. Moore's professional results. Then our witnesses. Mr. Green, my pharmacist, explained how Lena had tricked him into signing a misleading statement. Dr. Moore confirmed my mental capacity, presenting flawless cognitive test results. Mr. Summer from the hardware store testified about the rationality of my financial decisions. Eleanor and my garden club friends testified to my clarity, vitality, and healthy social life. Finally, it was my turn. I walked to the stand with dignity, feeling the weight of 71 years, wisdom earned through hardship, strength forged in adversity. Guided by Mr. Weber, I told my story, the $33,400 spent, the humiliation of being excluded from the wedding, the constant manipulation, the invasion of my privacy, and the threats. Mrs. Richter, Mr. Weber asked, why did you stop financial support for your son and daughter-in-law? Because I finally understood, I said, my voice clear, loud, unwavering, that what I was getting from them was not love. My money was welcome, but I, as a person, was not. This was a business disguised as a family relationship. Do you regret your decision? Only that it took me so long to make it. Max's lawyer tried to rattle me during cross-examination, but I answered each question with clarity, precision, and calm. When Max's lawyer tried to claim that my new friendships had manipulated me, I calmly explained that, for the first time in years, my relationships were based on mutual respect, not financial interest. His closing argument insisted I was a victim of outside influence. Then came Mr. Weber's rebuttal, devastating and undeniable. Your Honor, he said, what we have witnessed here is not the case of an incompetent old woman, but of a woman who has finally found the strength to free herself from years of financial and emotional abuse. The plaintiffs have presented no real medical evidence of mental incompetence. What they have presented is frustration that their source of income has chosen to exercise her legal and moral right to protect her own resources. Judge Miller retired to deliberate for what felt like 2 years compressed into 2 hours. When he returned, his expression was serious but clear. After reviewing all the evidence presented, he began, "It is obvious to this court that Mrs. Renedy Richter is in full possession of her mental faculties. Professional psychiatric evaluations confirm her cognitive competence. Her financial decisions, as painful as they may be for her family, are rational and entirely within her rights. Furthermore, the evidence suggests that this lawsuit is motivated by financial interest rather than genuine concern for Mrs. Richter's well-being. The request for guardianship is completely denied. I had won. Not just the lawsuit, but my freedom, my dignity, my right to live free from the abuse of those who had pretended to love me." Leaving the courthouse, I saw Max and Lena arguing with their lawyer. Lena's glance of pure hatred was the last I would ever receive from her. Max looked at me briefly, perhaps a flicker of regret, but it was already too late. That night, Ella Lehner organized a celebration at my home with all our friends. We toasted to justice, freedom, and the sisterhood of strong women who lift each other up. Renedy, Alfreda said, her 80-year-old wisdom shining, "Today, you didn't just win a trial. You won back your life." And she was right. For the first time in decades, the future was mine. I could travel, love, create, and live without fear, guilt, or manipulation. 3 months later, I sold my house and moved to a beautiful apartment in the city center. I donated half my money to organizations protecting the elderly from family abuse. With the rest, I began living the life I had always dreamed of. I traveled across Europe, took art classes, and joined volunteer groups. Max and Lena never contacted me again. Word reached me that they had downsized their lives, and Lena had found her first job in years. Perhaps adversity would teach them what my generosity never could, the value of honest work and independence. Some nights, when I look at the stars from my balcony, I remember the woman I was a year ago, fearful, manipulated, believing love could be bought. That woman is gone. In her place stands someone who has discovered a fundamental truth: true love is priceless, and freedom is never too expensive. My name is Renedy. I am 72 years old, and I have finally learned that the most important person to love and protect is myself. If you liked my story, you can support me so I can share more stories. I would also love to hear what you would do in my place. Share your thoughts in the comments. Where did you hear this story? For more life stories like this, like the video and subscribe to my channel. With heartfelt greetings. M.